Good afternoon, and thank you for joining me if you're here with the replay. I appreciate you being here, and welcome if you are joining me live. I am getting ready to make some chili, and I thought we could chat while I'm cooking. Hello and welcome. Hi, Meaningful Mama. Thank you for joining. So I've got my tripod out, so hopefully I can cook and talk at the same time. I wanted to hop on a little bit and chat because I've had a lot of things kind of brewing in my head, and I've not had the chance to write yet. So I wanted to chat with you while I cook. Hello and welcome. My name is Lisa. I blog at CreativLEI.com. Is looking at life creatively, which is kind of the chronicling of our family and how we do life, how we navigate through those ups and downs. So often I'll share family recipes, my artwork, Bible journaling, how I work out my messy faith, as I call it. And those are the type of things that you'll find on my blog. But you'll find me here on Periscope doing live the things that I've not had a chance to write yet. So sometimes you get to cook along with me for the recipes that I haven't written up and edited all the 50,000 pictures and things like that. So today I kind of wanted to talk sort of mom encouragement and just being a Christian woman. While I sit and make the chili. Our church is doing Vacation Bible School this week, and this year, instead of it being in the church and servicing our already churched children, our church is actually doing it out in a city park where we're right in the neighborhood that's most closely located to our church, so that it's a true outreach. And I am there this week as a community and mom bridge builder. I am not working with the children. I am there to chat with moms and to help talk to them about just the overwhelming feeling sometimes of being mom and raising children. So that has been my mission and goal this week, and it actually comes from a lot of what I've been praying about over the past year or so, especially since returning from Peru. Sorry, I'm just going to put my pot back on the stove. I've browned and drained my meat already. I'm using ground beef. I've got about a pound to a pound and a half of ground beef. I'm cooking. My family is 8 people in my household, and most of them are eaters, and they all love chili. So our ground beef is cooked. Hi, Jenny, welcome. Our ground beef is cooked and drained, and now I'm going to add diced onion and minced garlic. So if you have questions along the way, feel free to put them in the chat. I'll do my best to answer. My chili recipe is actually pretty simple. I've never written it down, and I do kind of change things up by the ratio each time that I make it. Depends on what's on hand, what was on sale. Last week, Aldi had the colored bell peppers for under $2 for 3, so I grabbed a bunch of those, so I knew we were going to be having chili for that. I loosely follow, or mostly follow, the Trim Healthy Mama way of eating, which is smart carbing, as I like to sum it up. And so this meal, even though it's using ground beef, I do consider this an E because I'm using lean ground beef, and by the time we split that beef for all the servings that we'll have, the fat content is actually quite minimal because I don't add extra oil. I brown the meat without any added extra oil, and then I did strain the meat also, and most of it is beans and vegetables. So I kind of wanted to talk about authenticity and what that means as far as developing your authority in fields versus expertise, or claiming expertise, because I've had this recent run-in sort of with this. My kitchen is very cute and happy. Yeah, my red walls definitely make it very happy and cheery. So recently I've been seeing a lot of my friends talking about their disappointment with a lot of mom blogs and the perception of perfection, even though we know it's not. We all know that blogs and social media are typically a very filtered view of someone's life. And that's been something that I certainly struggle with, being a mom blogger. And I was talking to my husband recently about how I define my online presence and what things I'm really careful about using as a label, because I recently saw an introduction of a newer blog where she's calling it a parenting blog, and I look at it and they have one child, and that child is under 1 year old. Now, I have had 7 children. My oldest is 13, all the way down to a 2-year-old, and I would never call my blog a parenting blog. Do I talk about my parenting style? I absolutely do, and I share the resources that we use. But I am far from an expert, because the one thing I've learned with each additional child, and as they continue to grow through different stages and phases, is that there's a whole lot that I don't know. And the ideals that we set off into parenthood with, those all change as each child enters a different phase and their personalities develop. With humility, I look at my parenting style and realize that it's constantly in evolution and progress and change, because we have to adapt. We have to adapt to our household, to our children, to my husband and I. There's no absolutes. I don't know the perfect way to parent. I wasn't parented perfect. I'm not parenting perfect, and I don't know anyone else out there that is. And so anyone that's, claiming to be a parenting expert, I'd be really cautious. That's inviting humility and not in a way that you would really want to gain it, I think. And so I always try to stress that the things that I share, I try to be very real on social media, because I know that you don't have time. You don't have time to sift through the nonsense to try and figure out who the real people are. I value your time, and I am very appreciative of when you're here chatting with me or looking into our lifestyle. I absolutely appreciate that. And I want you to see the real me. Are there certain things that I don't air? There absolutely are. You'll never see me talking down about my husband, because it doesn't belong here. And not because he's perfect, but because I'm not perfect either. And I certainly wouldn't want him sharing with his friends all my faults. He and I know where we're lacking, and we are pretty good about talking to each other about that. Those type of things just don't need to be on social media. I would never refer to him as one of my children or someone that I'm raising, because he's not. He's a man. He leads our family, and there's no room for that, ladies. Because I think that just like us women receive a lot of, it is being smart, but a lot of people don't use that filter. I think it's one of the very few filters that we actually should use online. You need to be representing yourselves as a joint team. We all know that no marriage is perfect, but we don't need to hear your dirty laundry, right? And you don't need to hear mine. You don't want to know that. So that's kind of some of the things that I've been thinking about. Thank you for joining. If you've just come in, I am making chili. We have to go out to Vacation Bible School tonight, and it starts really early, so I've been trying to get us some homemade meals instead of eating out the whole week. I've got chili on the stove, even though it's still hot here. It's definitely not chilly weather, and I apologize for all the reflections on the lens. It's the fisheye lens, so it's kind of compounding. Looks like a bling background or something. So I'm making chili. I make it super simple. It's just ground beef, onions, garlic, bell peppers, and canned beans. I do add a little bit of chipotle in adobo, but not very much, because my children don't like it too spicy. And my secret ingredient is dark chocolate. I don't use much. I just use a little bit. It's easy and filling, and I hesitate because it's so hot outside, but the air conditioning is on in the house, so I figure I can get away with it. And my husband and all my children really like chili, so I think they look forward to having it. It's just a little bit. It's not even that sweet, but it gives this balancing flavor that you kind of know something's there, but you just don't know exactly what it is. So I do like to add that, and the kids all know about it too. And like if someone's over for visiting when we're having chili, they like to spill that secret. They're like, Mom has a secret ingredient. She puts chocolate in there. And so of course everyone's first look is like, chocolate and chili? Yeah, dark chocolate. I'm using, I think it's an 85%, so it's really not very sweet at all. But it just adds a layer of flavor that balances it. So I'm just cutting up the chipotle because nobody wants a big hunk of that. We just want that to kind of melt into the rest of the chili. So how has your day been? And part of the reason why some of this stuff is burdening me is, yeah, you'll have to try it and let me know what you think. Because I'm finding it very difficult to live out the call of Titus 2 to minister, older women to minister to younger women. Doing that in real life has been very difficult for me because I think we live such secluded lifestyles, and the internet gives us this opportunity to really find our truly like-minded people, that we can shy away from dealing with the differences in our local relationships. And it's something that I'm really trying to break out of, but it's a challenge. It's absolutely a challenge because it takes at least 2 people that are willing to do that. And I have attempted to extend that relationship a number of times with a younger woman at our church, and it seems like every effort that I make is met with arm's distance. And so I'm looking for more opportunities. There are other young women that I do try to invest in also. But I wonder, how do you all do it? What are your local connections, and how do you minister in a lifestyle way? Because that's certainly where my heart is. I don't want it to be some scripted act of ministry. It works best when it's natural, when we foster these natural relationships with each other. So you can invest, I can invest in you. I do. I appreciate the community that is growing, especially here on Periscope, because we are getting a very your youth leader gets you in the door easy. Yes, my husband and I have led youth ministry in our church before. Well, he would be the leader, I would help. But as we had more children, I had to stay back home for a little bit, and then he needed to take a season away also. But this coming fall, he will be back in that seat because our youth minister recently quit. You talk and listen to everyone you meet. Always listen to find out more. And that's been I am not an extrovert. I am definitely a mix of introvert and extrovert, and so I find that creates difficulty because I crave relationships, but it's very hard to initiate. And I'm not even sure where that comes from, but I'm working slowly to try and get over that. I've just added the bell peppers to my chili. So that's going to all cook down. So I've got onions, garlic, and bell peppers in there. Sorry. And there you go for a ride. Sorry, my tripod is not the best. I need to get one of those flexible ones, especially for crafting. I think that would be helpful. So chili I like because it's basically one pot. I do have a couple bowls from the prep work that I'll need to clean, but the meal is cooked in one pot, and I will make a pot of rice for my husband and children. So I wonder, how do you balance communicating the authority in the places that you are? Like, obviously, I'm a mom. I have 6 children at home, the oldest one being a teen, the youngest being a toddler. So I have life experience behind me. And so I do have authority in certain aspects. But like I said, certainly not an expert because every day is full of learning, each new stage with my children. And so I wonder, how do you exercise and continue to move forward in humility, not claiming expertise or not even feigning expertise, but being humble in your approach to sharing parenting tips or things like that. Even like I don't know. I hesitate sometimes when I blog about homeschooling, since much of our homeschooling has been hard. We just, we've trudged through a few years. Excuse me. So, what are some of the challenges that you face with authentic ministry? And listening to people first creates instant bonds for me. People love to talk about themselves. I agree. I got into a fairly good conversation organically last night at the end of the VBS. There was a couple standing there watching the girls dance. And I was able to strike up conversation with them and really let it be all about them and their children. And hopefully when they come back tonight, we can continue the conversation, which is what my goal has been for the whole week, is to really focus on the parents that are trusting us with their children for 2.5 hours a night. Think that you're okay to be yourself. Let God correct you when he sees that you say something wrong. I agree with that. And Jenny says, I struggle with balancing authenticity and positivity. I'm too truthful. Everything sounds hard. Yeah, I totally get that, because there is a balancing act with that. And I think especially those of us that are momming large families or many young children, it's very easy to focus on the hard work that it is. That's why I appreciate Mackenzie over at the Bold Turquoise talking about cultivating the lovely that's in that. It doesn't negate the hard work, and it doesn't make it easy, but it gives you a different perspective of how you take it in and how you process and how you move forward through each of the days and hours. And I was talking to other moms from our church that have even older children than I do, whose children are they have not walked away from the church, but they are already showing great disinterest within the body. Hi, Mackenzie, welcome. I was just talking about you. All good things, though. And so I was talking to them about, the types of things that they were talking about was like hair color and questions. And I wanted to encourage these moms. Certainly, I'm not in the same position as them because my children are younger, but I am someone who came to faith as a teen and then lived through very difficult circumstances as I got older. In my 30s, I lost a child. And I didn't walk away from faith, but I have some serious questions. And so I shared with these women that I don't think the questions are the problem. Having a question doesn't minimize the faith that you have, or it doesn't minimize the role that God plays in your life. God is big, and he knows our questions before we ask them, before we even utter them. He knows them. And it's about an open conversation. It's not that I turned around to ask God, why would you allow my daughter to die? But I asked him, what do you need me to learn from this? And what is the purpose? Asking what the purpose is not a doubt that he can overcome. And so I tried to talk to these women to encourage them that because their older children are asking questions is not a bad thing. I don't think that God sees that as a threat. It's an opportunity. It's an opportunity for those of us within the church who've not led a very easy, smooth life to say, hey, I've worked through this. And God is still faithful even through this mess. You think questioning is a sign of growing maturity. I do too, although I've had some people try to tell me that it was not, and that true maturity would accept what God is processing you through and not ask questions. And I think that does such a disservice to the body. Mackenzie says it's an opportunity to inspire personal faith for them. It absolutely is. That's how I see it. I think some people feel threatened, and I don't see where that comes from, because I don't think that God is threatened. And I see that we miss too many ministry opportunities when we try to minimize the very validity of having questions. And how in the world do you grow a strong faith without asking questions? That to me doesn't seem authentic. So I add a little bit of beef base to my chili. You could use beef broth, but I don't always have that on hand because we don't always have bone-in meats for beef. I have lots of chicken broth on hand, and I could use that, but I didn't defrost it. So I'm doing beef base and water. If you don't ask questions, you push everything internal. I've had to take time. Pulling those questions lately. I agree. When we internalize that without giving an outward opportunity to process, it creates a wall. It creates a wall between us and other believers and us and God, because we think that we can't bring that to him because we wouldn't want to be questioning his power and his goodness, when it's not that at all. He is good. He's good through the bad, and everything does have its purpose for growing our faith. I appreciate you guys hanging with me through this conversation. This is good stuff. My helper is doing a good job. Hi Francesca. Yeah, she offered to be my camera woman in case I needed it. So I brought the tripod up, but sometimes that goes tipsy. So she's a helper, and she likes the way the dinner smells. So
it smells so good.
Yeah, my boys are watching Phineas and Ferb, and they're enjoying the aroma also. And so conversations like this is what I truly appreciate about Periscope, because it gives us an opportunity to build in and find the safe community to ask questions and to point each other back to God for his faithfulness through those things, not in spite of those things. Phineas and Ferb. I know, it's one of my, I'm so sad that the series is over now. Do I ever make chili with other meats? And I have mixed the beef and turkey. I don't tend to use ground turkey by itself because I don't care completely for the flavor, but I do love mixing it to stretch the beef, since I can usually get the turkey much cheaper. You heard once, let them dye their hair. It allows them to step outside the norm and try. Yeah, and talking to this woman, she said her son was really looking for reaction, and so it spoke a lot when all the others on the worship team didn't react. He didn't elicit the reaction that he was looking for, because that's, I think, a lot of the times with youth that are questioning the verity of their faith, they're looking for the reactions. They're looking for a reason to say, this is why I don't identify here, and this is why I'm walking out the door. But when we remove those reactions by not reacting to the superficial and getting down to the heart and having those hard conversations that say, you know what, it's okay. It's okay to dye your hair. It's temporary. It's going to grow out, fall out, get cut off, all those things. That's not your heart. Your heart is there, and we need to dig there. We need to not stop at, the color of the nails or whether they have, piercings. It's a gray area. But still, if we focus just on what we see outside, we're missing the greater opportunity to meet them with their heart. Mackenzie, thank you so much for stepping in. And yeah, the replay will be available, and I am on catch.me/CreativLEI. And I would love to continue this conversation, because I think that there's so much value in more and more of us talking about the nitty-gritty of faithfulness. Thank you, Mackenzie. Thank you for introducing us all to Cultivating the Lovely and giving a title to the faith and the workings that we are going through, growing our faith and growing in our position as women, wives, and moms, because I truly appreciate that opportunity. And finding a community of women that are seeking after similar goals. and those that are in different phases, stages, and sides of this discussion, because I think sometimes we get so focused in on finding the like-minded people that we miss the opportunity to grow from the iron sharpening iron of hearing differing opinions or perspectives. And there's so much goodness that comes from it. I intended a simulcast of the IF gathering this past winter. Keep in mind that those outer things don't matter. It shouldn't let me hurt my silly. I know. I think we do. Especially as parents, we know that those on the outside are looking at our children as a reflection of what goes on in our home. And so I think it's certainly valid that we have some concern about how they represent our families outside of the home. But again, as long as we are not letting that get in the way of the opportunity to minister to them and to grow their personal faith footing. So how I add water to the chili is I just rinse out the can of tomato sauce and use that. I can always add more water as it cooks down. If it's a little too thick, just add a little bit more water and let it cook through. So I like to add all the tomatoes in before I add the beans to let them cook and kind of meld together for a little bit. I know you love watching these Mommy Scoops. The Mommy Scoops community has been awesome because I think it's the community and social media that so many of us were craving, to have the interaction without waiting for a response on YouTube or a blog or on Facebook, to be able to interact immediately in this kind of group setting where, certainly I'm talking to my own image, but I get to see you all in the chat area. And it brings the conversations further, because as we each come with our perspective or our questions, it keeps us going further and further, which has been such a joy. And I like, even though like a scope like this is kind of random because I'm cooking and talking at the same time, so there's little rabbit trails, this is real life, and this is how I foster my local relationships that will allow such interaction. And like, it's having a girlfriend over for coffee, while I'm prepping dinner for the family. We're going to keep the conversation going, even though we're multitasking, which I'm not always the best multitasker, but periscoping kind of helps that a little bit. So it's like sometimes people will ask me for recipes, and I'm like, I don't have that written down, but why don't I just give you a list of ingredients, and either you can come over or I can come over to your house, and we'll just cook together, because that's fun. And I think, like, as we get into the generations that have less home economics or busy families that aren't always at home, these are the opportunities to regrow those skills that are kind of waning because they seem to be by some viewed as old school or obsolete or just not important. When we all realize that once we're starting to raise our own families, these skills are imperative for growing our family strong. You love cooking with other women? I do too. It's so much fun. Because we learn different recipes, different styles. We all come from different family backgrounds, so we have different family favorites. I can smell the chipotle. Makes me sad when young adults don't know how to cook. Yeah, I have 6 children in my house, and they will all leave this house knowing at least a handful of methods to cook. Maybe not, they won't memorize specific recipes, but I will certainly be teaching them methods that they can use. Because that's, you can make mac and cheese, and you can make oatmeal, and eggs. All my children know how to make eggs. Even the 2-year-old makes her eggs. With some help. Yes, she's learning how to saute.
And I taught myself how to.
It's cooking for our families and cooking for others is such a basic way of ministering too, because there's something so communal. eating is a necessity. We have to eat to live. Similarly to, we have to breathe to live. It's something that everyone does. But fellowship and community comes from eating in a way that doesn't in other aspects of life. And so I think it's so important to learn how to cook and how to serve.
Sometimes why I like to stick around for when you cook so that I can see how you do it.
Need to be better about letting the kids cook. I'm a kitchen control freak. For certain things, I am, and I'm learning. My daughter's laughing because she knows it's true. For certain things, I'm learning to let go of the reins a little bit. Not totally, because I like things a certain way and cleaning up as I go and that type of thing that they're not always so good at. But we give them the opportunity to at least try. So let's see, I'm going to take you off the tripod. Pardon me. Okay, so there we have it. I'm going to switch this to low, or 1, and let this simmer until everybody's ready to eat. And I will add the chocolate in probably after it's cooked for maybe an hour or 2. So I just add 85%, so it's like a really dark chocolate, and that'll just go right in and melt in. There I am. So fish eye is off. So hopefully, do I use canned beans or dry? I used canned beans. These are the light red kidney beans from Aldi. I use 6 cans of beans and about 1.5 pounds of meat, and this will feed all 8 of us plus leftovers for a little while. Because I make a pot of rice to go with it. We serve our chili over rice, and then I will also shred cheddar cheese, and I'll put sour cream out for my children and my husband. And I'll probably, as this starts to cook down, I'll add some water. We don't have like a soupy chili. We have a pretty thick and chunky chili. In the past, I've added small dices of zucchini if I needed to stretch the vegetable. But we had so many peppers this week that I could just do that. And so it's going to cook down. I have used dried beans before, but the process of prepping those beans, I just don't always have the time to do. I have some in my freezer. I have pink beans in my freezer right now, but still they need to cook down a little bit more. But I like to make that with, it's an Italian dish. We call it pasta fagioli or pasta fazool if you have Italian family, and it's just pasta and beans, which I sometimes make during the winter, and that is a more soupy dish than the chili. So I just wanted to thank you all for joining me this afternoon while I cooked, and for chatting encouragement, authenticity, and expertise, which is a myth. It really is a myth, and it makes me cringe when women use that. They label themselves for something that they truly don't have expertise in and hardly have authority. So it's something that, I'm awfully careful of, and I hope that I am staying humble in that, and that you guys would call me out. Call me out when you start to see things that are looking awry, because that's not my goal here. My goal here is to be real, to be authentic. Thank you, Mommy CreativLEI, for joining. We are at the tail end. The replay will be available. We were making chili and chatting mom encouragement. The replay is up for the next 24 hours, and also on catch.me, which will allow you to see all the comments and fast forward when you need to. Thank you, ladies, so much for being with me this afternoon. I will see you all tonight on the Mommy Scopes Mom Hop. I believe I'm right in the middle of the pack where we'll be sharing our planner, so be sure to check that out. Thank you, Jenny, for being with me this afternoon. I will see you all later and around.